Hi, my name is Sharnice Abs, and I'm going to be going over my 7E science lesson plan for my children's literature book. I chose the book, What Do They Do with All That Poo, by Jane Kurtz and illustrated by Allison Black. For this lesson, the grade level that I chose was second grade. The topic was scientific investigation and reasoning, and the standards addressed were scientific investigation and reasoning. The student develops abilities necessary to do scientific inquiry and classroom and outdoor investigations. The student is expected to ask questions about organisms, objects, and events during observations and investigations. Plan and conduct descriptive investigations, collect data from observations using scientific tools, record and organize data using pictures, numbers, and words, and communicate observations and justify explanations using student-generated data from simple descriptive investigations, and compare results of investigations with what students and scientists know about the world. A brief description of my lesson. Through this lesson, students will be comparing and contrasting the poop of different animals and classifying it. We will be using different food items to simulate what these animals' poops would look like to help the students classify their observations. So for performance expectations, the students will be able to work together as a group to ask questions, make observations, and collect data from pictures and our homemade guano. Specific learning outcomes. At the end of the lesson, students are expected to know and understand how the weathering and breaking down of rocks and the use of fossil fuels impact the environment. The students will need to know how to document their observations, take detailed notes about what they see, and they would need to know that all animals' poop is not the same. Disciplinary core ideas. Using prior knowledge of science, the students will be able to make observations using tools and have the ability to collect data as they go. Interdisciplinary connections, we're going to be tying this lesson to social studies, possible preconceptions or misconceptions. All animals' poop is the same size, shape, and has the same content, which is not true because we know that dogs' poop does not look like birds' poop. For the 7E lesson plan portion for elicit, we're going to draw attention to prior knowledge. So I will ask students what they know about animal poop and other fossil fuels. I will have them to discuss with their groups what they already know or any observations that they have made about the animals they have at their home or they've seen before. I'm going to share my screen. And take you to the document that they would fill out as they're going along. Once the actual lesson is introduced to them. Share my screen. Make it bigger. Okay. So before reading, what do you know about animal poop? How does it differ from human waste? So how does animal poo differ from our poo? What do you know about animal waste? So I want them to tell me, what do you know about animal poop? And after reading, what did you learn from our reading? What more would you like to know? And that was for elicit. For engage, for their opening activity, this is what I would have them to do first. For engage, to pique interest, we're going to start with elephant poop paper. So in the book, it discusses how waste is used for each of the animals. So for this, one of the ones that stuck out to me the most was elephant poop paper. So elephants poop 165 pounds of poop per day. So they found an interesting way to take the fibers from this poop, wash it, and create paper. So I'm going to show them a quick video. I will show the video. Share my screen, show the video. I'm going to show them a quick video of what they do with all that elephant poop. So this is the video.
What I'm holding right now is normal paper. But what if I told you that this paper is made out of poop? Real elephant poop. Someone in the country of Sri Lanka took something that's very worthless, poop, and made a business out of it. Turns out elephants, in real life, are vegetarian, and they produce poop filled with fiber that's honestly not that disgusting. So someone took this poop, dried it, cleaned it, dyed it, spread it, compressed it, smoothed it, cut it, combined it, and made it into a real paper product that is sold in over 30 countries. All of this comes from the poop of 8 elephants only because each one of them poops 16 times a day. To make this paper, you don't need to cut down any forests like this. You give jobs to people who are otherwise unemployed, and you build a business. There is no better way to describe this.
Okay, so I would show my students this video just to get them into the swing of this is a cleaner alternative than cutting down millions and millions of trees each year. This is something that goes to waste. It's literal waste that goes to waste. So I would introduce them to this idea, and we would make our own paper. To do this, you would need a blender. I would not recommend using something that's brand new. Water, you would need a large container, and you would need recycled paper. So we're going to be making our own paper out of recycled paper. So I would have my students in small groups, I would demonstrate this to them first. I would be doing all of the blending prior to, so that they would not be dealing with something such of a high power as a blender. We would shred it up. I would show them the process. We would squeegee all of it out, and we would have our own paper. This is a clean alternative. This is reducing the amount of waste we're producing, and this is also reusing some of the things that we use. We go through paper like nobody's business. So to be able to learn about something like elephant poop paper, it's really intriguing. I would have them do this activity because it shows them that these are ways that you can reduce, reuse, and recycle. And this would tie into our science lesson. I'm sorry, our social studies lesson about how slash and burn affects the rainforest. So the cutting down of trees and how that affects the rainforest and oxygen depletion. For our explore, we prior to reading the book, I will ask the students, what animals have you seen at the zoo? What do most, if not all, animals have in common? What do you believe happens happens to all the poo that is at the zoo? So after the reading, we will talk about what we learned from the book, what similarities we noticed about the animals, and what observations they made about the text. So for the prior to reading, I would have the students, for the prior to reading, I would have the students to do the elicit portion where they wrote down what they knew, what they wanted to know, what they learned, and that would be a worksheet. Whereas for explore, we would do a Jamboard. And this is what the Jamboard looks like. And students would have the opportunity to go in, and it's one solid Jamboard, so students can go in, and once I shared the link with them, all they would have to do is type in, I've seen birds at the zoo, I've seen monkeys, I've seen big cats. So they would be able to tell me the different things that they've seen at the zoo, and we would all be able to see it as a class. Okay. For explain, so just a rundown of some of the vocabulary, we have feces, fecal matter, guano, manure, droppings, which are different types of poo depending on the animal. Observation, the act of observing or taking a patient look at. Investigate is to investigate something scientifically, so to get a closer look at it scientifically. Data, a collection of facts from which conclusions may be drawn. A carnivore is any animal that feeds on flesh. An herbivore is any animal that feeds chiefly on grass and other plants. And an omnivore, an animal that feeds on both animal and vegetable substances. Vegetarian, eater of fruits and grains and nuts, or someone who eats no meat or fish, often any animal products. So the elephants in the book, like the video said, they're vegetarian. They eat plants and they also eat fruits and grains. So that's what makes the difference between them being an herbivore and them being a vegetarian. Okay, so for elaborate, the students, through the students' knowledge and understanding of animal secretions, they will be able to readily identify each animal's waste based on their size, shape, color, texture, and environment in which it's found. So this is where the fun happens. Yay. I would have samples of guano. It would not be real poop. It would be granola. Some of the different recipes that I found are like cocoa pebbles, which are like small black, and that would represent one. There I've seen the Tootsie Rolls warmed up and stretched to look like poo. So there's different ways that I'm going to show them, and then we're going to discuss how each animal's poop means something, just like all the animals that were in the book. So we're going to take a closer look at that. And that will be during the elaborate portion. For extend, we will be tying this lesson into social studies and the use of animal poop in cultural practices. We will exclusively be looking at South American native peoples pre-Columbus and how they regarded guano as a treasure and how the disruption of their habitats of bats was punishable by death. We can also tie it into math and discuss how we classify shapes based on their characteristics, the same way that we would be classifying animal scat based on the animal it comes from. So like I said, we would be looking at the size, the shape, the color, the texture, and the environment in which it was left. So you're not gonna see bat guano in the regular forest, like bats live in caves. So I would simulate what that will look like for them, and then we would be able to classify each of these based off of that. For evaluate, for their evaluation, I will have students to walk around the room and use what they learned about the animals in the book to classify whose poop belongs to who. So I'll give a brief description to them about whose poop, where the poop was found, the possible animals it could come from, and I would have a worksheet to go along with it so that they would be able to look at that. They would do a matching activity using the homemade animal guano. So I would have separate secondary samples for them to use and walk around the classroom. So they would do almost like a gallery walk where they would answer questions as they went. So the worksheet looks like this. I'm going to share my screen. So whose scat is that? I need your help. I am out on the trail and I have come across some animal scat. I need your help to classify which of these animals I am. I will put a description of diet and the area in which I was found along with the sample of my scat. Happy hunting. So I have a possum. So they would tell me the observations they've made about the possum poop. I have a deer. They would have the observations there. A coyote, their observations there. A toad, observations. Moose, I'm sorry, not moose, mouse, and their observations. A rabbit and the observations. Bear and the observations. Cougar and a goose. I would have them to draw a picture of each of these animals to go along with the animal scat that they chose. So these are the different types of animal scat. And I did put a disclaimer, all of the animal scat is made from store-bought food items. It is not real scat. So I don't want them going home telling mom and dad that they've come across real poo in the classroom. That would be bad. Okay. So for their formatives, they will work together as a group, and I will walk around and ask questions about how the students are coming up with their answers and how they're classifying everything. And then for summative, the worksheet will be their summative assessment, which will tell me if they understood the material and if they're understanding how to classify. And so some of the materials, the homemade animal scat, the worksheet, whose scat is that, the blender, the water, the recycled paper, the observation sheet for elicit. They would need technology to do the Jamboard, the squeegee board for making the paper, a drying rack for the paper to dry on, recycled paper, the actual Jamboard activity itself, and a large container for the paper pulp to sit inside of. And that was my lesson. Thank you.